दोस्तों, good evening. I'm going to talk to you on a very important topic. और ये जो टॉपिक है हर एक आदमी के मन में है. I mean, all over the world, people are thinking about what I'm going to talk now. And the topic I'm going to talk on is whether there's going to be a war between India and China or not. Actually, ये प्रश्न तब उठा when yesterday I was sitting in the bar with one of my friends and he asked me, Captain, can you tell me if there is going to be a war between India and China? After all, the last war we fought was in 1962, and that is 62 years back. So, what are the chances of a war? Now, I have got a one line answer for that, and I'll amplify it later. My answer is yes, there's going to be a war with China. No doubt about it. A war with China, yes. And it will not be just confined to the northern border, but there will be skirmishes and battles in the Indian Ocean as well. Because China is thinking that they must exercise their superiority over India and show to the world, like in 1962, that they are the omnipotent power in Asia. So it's a question of two swords and one scabbard. In other words, as we say in Punjabi, ik miyan do talwara. So you can't have two swords fitting into a scabbard, and Asia, there are two big giants, India and China. There's a third giant, Japan, but it's been written off. After the Second World War, two atomic bombs, and then the end of Japan. And Japan hasn't recovered from that trauma. They haven't recovered. They are still in that age, in awe and shock. So the question that they will be a resurgent power is very remote. But as far as these two countries are concerned, they are vying for each other. China is ahead of India at the moment, but India is catching up fast, and that is the problem which China is facing. Now, gentlemen, China is out to needle India, thinking that it's best to provoke India, and so that India should launch an attack or something like that, and then China can react. But the Indian leadership under Modi is pretty shrewd, and they're not going to do that. And the way that China is provoking India is very plain and simple. They are claiming the entire Arunachal Pradesh, which earlier used to be known as the Northeast Frontier Agency. The British, when they were ruling in India, they were administering this area as a protected area with a inner line permit. That means nobody could just go there without the permit of the deputy commissioner. So they keep this area isolated, but they had control over it. But once they went away, it was incumbent on India that India maintains that control. Though they had a semblance of control in the NEFA, a Northeast Frontier Agency, they had no control over the other portion, that is Aksai Chin, and that's a huge area. 30,000 square miles, you can just imagine. And the Chinese took it for a song because of the foolishness of our Indian Prime Minister, Jawaharlal Nehru, with no idea of what is global strategy, what is the military power, and how is military power an adjunct to global domination. I think he had no idea about all these things. I mean, I don't blame him in the sense he had been brought up on a diet of ahimsa, fast unto death, all those things. That's okay. The British tolerated Gandhi as an old man, but other countries in the world are going to tolerate it. So that is the problem, gentlemen. A feeling of false superiority, neglecting your military hardware, the military capabilities, and just letting the land go to seed, not setting an administration there. Now in NEFA, what the Chinese have done is they have named almost about 20 or 30 places with Tibetan names. And recently when the Indian Prime Minister went to Arunachal Pradesh, they protested. They said he got no right to go there. And mind you, the Chinese were silent about this area till 2017. And they came into power in China in 1949. So that's the problem. That means they were silent for 68 years and then they dug up this thing to needle India. Now, they were pretty happy with the Congress regime, when so long as Nehru was there, and Nehru didn't know damn thing, and then, of course, Indira Gandhi also in the same loop. Then everybody, and then finally we had 10 years of the Congress rule under the Sardar, the famous man, with his spectacles and always saying, yes, sir, three bags full to Sonia Gandhi. Well, he's the man who gave away a lot of territory, and he's the man who was of the view that one should not antagonize China. Because there was a statement made by the defense minister during his time, and it could not have been made without the concurrence of the Sardar, that China is a bigger power, so we should not antagonize it, or words to that effect. So there you are. It's however, when Narendra Modi came to power, he thought of changing everything. And he changed it very nicely, in the sense India began to build up infrastructure, roads, tunnels, railway lines. The railway line to Srinagar is opening soon. And the Chinese are pretty unhappy. They said, what the hell is going on? We were having the dominant position all over so long the Congress was in power. Now this man's coming and he's becoming our equal. So they had that Galwan incident where 20 Indian soldiers died, and I think many Chinese died, though they don't admit it. And then also we have to talk about the provocations in the Eastern Front. But Modi has matched China break for break, blow for blow, and India's got 50,000 troops on the border with China, and another 10,000 have been put in central portion of the Chinese border in Uttarakhand as well. This has again angered the Chinese. And the Chinese now are looking for a way in which they can reassert their supremacy, and they feel that a quick blow to India like in 1962 should do the trick. Now that is the point in issue. That means China is looking for a limited war where they'll win, and then they can tell to the world, look, India is defeated, we are the omnipotent power in Asia. But gentlemen, 2 and 2 always don't add up to 4, and 3 and 3 doesn't make 6. 3 into 3 multiplication makes it 9, and this is where the Chinese are floundering. We'll have to wait and see what happens, but my view is that the Chinese are going to have a conflict in the northern border. At the same time, they are making a ring around India, with Sri Lanka being their pigeon, their bunny. They pet it and give him some feed, and then Sri Lankans keep dancing in front of them. They've already given the Port to China for 99 years. I haven't heard of any country ceding its own port to any other country for 99 years. Well, Lankans have done it. And then you have Pakistan in the Gwadar port, but there's a lot of resistance there. The Baluch Liberation Army is acting, and 6 Chinese got killed the other day. There's the Pakistan Taliban is acting in the northwest frontier, that is the Pakhtun Valley, and I think they've killed a couple of Chinese there also. And what has happened, the net result is that so-called CPAC project which China had started in Pakistan at the moment hasn't moved forward. The Chinese are wondering what is done, because they have invested about $60 to $70 billion, and I think that's gone down into the Arabian Sea. So gentlemen, China is on the back foot, and the only way the Chinese feel they can get back is by defeating India in a war. Now there's one channel which run by an ex-army officer, and this man seems to be in awe of the Chinese all the time. I mean, he even contested the opinion of John and Mishmar, the correspondent, the commentator from America, and then he's also going around and saying a lot of things, that there's going to be artificial intelligence, this thing, that thing, and China, India's army is outdated. He even criticized the interview given by the Chief of Defense Staff, General Sharma, and gave his own harebrained comments. But this man has forgotten one thing. As Field Marshal Montgomery said, whatever the sophistication, whatever happens, it is the infantry soldier who must hold the ground. And this is the Achilles heel of the Chinese army. They haven't fought a battle since 79. How many years is that? 45 years. And that time, they didn't cover themselves with glory when they were fighting Vietnam. That was the Vietnam War. And now the Chinese don't have battle experience, number one, and they have a demographic problem. Young men are not available. And that's number one. Number two is if a son man is available, he's the only son because they had a one child policy. And if that son dies, the family tree is extinguished. And so nobody wants to go and die in this war. And that's a moral problem the Chinese army is facing. I don't think people are really aware of what's going to happen, but that is one of the very important factors. And I don't think it's going to be a clean sweep victory like China had in 62. They're going to get a very bloody nose. See, I tell you, when I was doing the staff college earlier, the war college, and we got our degrees from the Madras University as postgraduates in military science, we studied all options in various stand models and exercises regarding Pakistan and other places, but there was no exercise for China. I was wondering, I asked the Brigadier DS, I said, what the hell, sir? Why don't we study that? So he said, keep quiet. This is the policy. But I think that has changed now. That negative thinking which Indian army had against China is now gone. But at the same time, a lot has to be done. I think the army is now geared up for a battle in Tibet. That's my view of thinking, and there's a possibility that we could even make a thrust to Lhasa. Because the Tibetan people are restive. They are unhappy with the control of the Chinese, and they're looking forward to help from the world to free them from the Chinese. The same thing in Xinjiang, where the Muslims are being harassed by the Chinese. No burqa, no Ramadan fasting, and no prayer 5 times a day and waste working hours. So, gentlemen, these are the things which we must all remember, that China has got some inherent problems, but India is not exploiting them like they do. They exploit the Arunachal Pradesh, and they were earlier not recognizing it as part of India. Even now they don't, and they don't give passports or visas, if you're a citizen of Arunachal Pradesh, and they don't stamp in the papa, they give a stapled visa. I think India should have reacted to this for a long time back, and we should have said, well, Tibet is not a part of China, and we've gone about it in that, built it up from there. Because Tibet was for years an independent state, and it was a buffer between India and China. The British done it, but we have our great Prime Minister, whom everybody is saying is the fountainhead of India, and he gave all his rights up in Tibet, and he went to sleep. You know how he went to sleep? You must have heard that story of Rip Van Winkle, who went to sleep and then wake up for 20 years. Well, that's what Panditji did. He just went to sleep. He went to sleep as far as Tibet is concerned. He went to sleep as far as Aksai was concerned. And he was sleeping on the McMahon line. When China was agreeable to accept the McMahon line as the border in India, he didn't reciprocate. He thought he's a great leader, Mao Zedong, are kuch nahi hai, he's nothing, uneducated man. I am from Harrow, Barrett Law and all that. All that thing came to zero. Ultimately, the situation began out of defeat in 1962. Panditji couldn't show his face anywhere. That's a fact. He was just hiding in Delhi. He was hiding from the public. He was hiding from all the foreign persons when he was strutting around the state as the great third world leader. And because he didn't realize that you're a great leader only if you have a strong military. And he didn't understand that, because probably he was scared that the military coup and he'll be thrown out. And that wouldn't have happened in India, because the Indian army's got a different composition. But he was scared when General Ayub Khan took over martial law administration in Pakistan, and same thing in Burma when General Levin took over and threw out the civilian government. So he thought maybe something may not happen. Similarly, so he kept the army defanged, the leadership kept on fighting with each other. That was thanks to Krishna Menon, whom he appointed as defense minister, who didn't know anything about a field gun or a long-range gun or an armored car. He didn't know anything. But he became the defense minister of India. That's the bane of India, that people who get no military knowledge become defense ministers. I will say the same thing about the present man even. He's a good man, very nice person, Mr. Rajnath Singh, but I don't think he's the right man to be the defense minister. Well, gentlemen, China, as I told you in the press, they have a tremendous trade with India now. I think 130 or 140 billion dollars. So China will not have a long war. They don't want it. And they repeatedly said that trade and our problems are different, they should be separated. Why they say it is separated? Because trade is in their favor. But India says you cannot have trading and normal relations until you solve the border. Now, part of the problem with India is that India has not solved the border problem and doesn't want to solve it because we're still claiming Aksai Chin. Now, historically, Aksai Chin has been never part of India for 4,000 years. Let me tell you this. No Indian king ever controlled Aksai Chin or even Nefa. Even the great empires of Ashok or Aurangzeb, they didn't have control over those areas. So it's the best to accept a quid pro quo from China, which they'd offered in 62, I think, or 61, when Chow Enlai came to India. It offered the McMahon line as the border between in east, and it said accept the Chinese line in Ladakh and Xinjiang. Well, you got to accept it, and you got to stop making all those maps, showing Aksai Chin is part of India. But it requires a very brave man to bite the bullet. But till that is settled, China is not going to leave India. And now the situation is a little different. Because even if you settle the border now with China, China is on a resurgent mood. It wants to prove that it's the most powerful nation in the world, and India is the stone which must be thrown away from its path. So there has to be a clash. And I only have a feeling that it will be a limited border clash, and once the Chinese have suffered a bloody nose, probably they'll look for a facing way out. And then it's going to be also a conflict in the Asian region, in the Indian Ocean. And therefore, the Chinese are going to be at a handicap. They don't have the basis to fight. And India could easily throttle off the Chinese supply line from the Straits of Sumatra. They won't know what's happening because we've got a massive naval presence in the Andaman and Nicobar Islands. And I think Chinese quoting Maldives are not going to help them at all. Maldives is what Maldives. They're like a small bloody kitten. Well, they'll start mewing like a cat moment, and I don't think they're really worth even talking to these characters. Best thing to occupy the Maldives militarily and finish the issue once for all. Well, these are brave, words which I give an opinion. Of course, things can't be done the way I'm talking, but you can do those things and look forward that you do it that way. So, gentlemen, there's a lot of things on. We'll have to wait and see what happens really. And the situation as it stands is the border, the northern border is very tense, and there's also a tension in the Indian Ocean because the Maldives are, I think, giving some naval facilities to the Chinese. In addition, Lanka has already given them naval facilities, and then the Burmese have given the Chinese surveillance equipment to be set up on the islands released to them by India. There's the Coco Islands. Again, our great Prime Minister gave them to Burma. But at the same time, now things are changing. Narendra Modi is the man in power at the helm of affairs, and he is going about in a very, very methodical manner, ensuring that India, at the same time, doesn't provoke China, doesn't have a war. We don't want a war with China, but if it comes, we should be ready for it. And then China will not also like to fight a full-scale war, because that would mean America coming on the side of India, the EU coming on the side of India, and Russia, the favored friend, their strongest ally, is not going to fight India for China on behalf of China. They will be neutral. So that's going to blow. China will be left alone. And then there's a seventh fleet breeding down in the Eastern Pacific, and Taiwan and Japan. They're not happy with China at all. So China will not have a longer conflict. They don't want it. It's not in their interest. They want a short conflict, a quick victory. But then, there's an old saying, if wishes were horses, beggars will ride. So if the Chinese wish that this could happen like that, it's not going to happen like that. India is well prepared. The battle-hardened army, we've been fighting for 75 years. They've been fighting insurrection. They fought 5 wars, won a decisive victory in 71 in the Bangladesh battle when the entire Pakistan army, 100,000 surrendered. Well, China didn't have anything like that. They last fought in Korea in 1950 and they got a bloody nose in Korea. They didn't know what to do. And the same thing was happening in Vietnam. They didn't win anything there. So they're looking for a method by which they can exert their authority. One of the methods is, of course, trade. But the second thing is to keep India down from making its infrastructure and getting ready. Because the more the time goes away and the more the roads are built, the tunnels are built, the rails are set on the borderline, what happens next? India becomes invincible, and they don't want that. Well, gentlemen, these are my thoughts. At the same time, let's expect a border clash with China. I think let's be ready about it. The Indian government has got to be more proactive. I think they got to ensure that Tibetans get their rights. There's no harm in talking about them. No harm in talking about the way the Chinese are treating the citizens of Hong Kong. And then, of course, the Muslims are having a tough time in Xinjiang. They should talk about it. Some of the Muslim nations don't want to talk about what's happening in Xinjiang, like Turkey and Pakistan. Well, India cannot keep quiet. Well, gentlemen, we'll have to wait and see what happens next. But I think the time would be around 2027 would be the time which even the stars foretell a clash with China, and that would mean, of course, the downfall of China. Gentlemen, I have nothing more to add now. I hope you like my channel. Share it with your friends and come back for more. I look forward to talking to you again. Goodbye and God bless.